The Portfolio Composer, episode 211.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of The Portfolio Composer.
The first thing I do when I get to the studio, and it's almost like I overcome this fear every single day in that space of time. And then when I sit down to get to work, I've already beaten the critic down. And I'm like, okay, I might suck, but I'm going to do this. The process is more important than the outcome, and where you find your muse and where you find, it's not going to find you. You have to kind of put yourself in the right place. So if I go into a studio and I play the piano for an hour and then I sit down at my computer, nothing might come to me, but more likely that something will come to me. And if I'm sitting there, I'll be able to do something with it.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorico Pro 2 is a major new version, including features for musicians working in film and TV music and in jazz, rock, and pop. Steinberg have also released Dorico Elements, a new entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorico Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. Welcome to episode 211 of the Portfolio Composer podcast. I am your host, your coach, and your teacher, Garrett Hope. Today's episode is an interview with composing duo Danny Bensi and Saunder Jurriaans. They are both award-winning composers, and they have been playing music together for over 20 years. In the last 8 years, they have completed well over 100 acclaimed film and TV scores. The duo is best known for their music in Enemy, Martha Marcy May Marlene, The OA, Ozark, American Gods, and Boy Erased. We go pretty deep into how and why composers need to let go of their ego and what it means to just get the music out the door and to not stop the creative process or not to overthink things too much. I think there's a lot in here you can get value out of. Enjoy. How did you guys fall into this thing called composing?
Well, we're definitely, both of us were always intrigued with music and played music growing up. Now, it was never with we weren't on paths. I mean, I was studying the cello over in Europe, but I wasn't that serious about it. I was keen on it. And Saunder was in Seattle playing in bands and playing guitar and stuff. And so music was in our houses. Our families played a little bit, maybe just a little. So it was always around in schools. And then I went and studied it in college. I got a degree in music with a focus on cello here in the States. But I found the world a little bit constrictive and it just wasn't quite right for me. And I honestly just wasn't really enough cellist. So I was like, I want to do other things and I want to travel and I want to go to New York City. And I had met Saunder at RISD because he was studying there and playing in a band. He was roommates with a childhood friend of mine. So I was just visiting and we became friends very quickly. And I moved to Boston. And so I was going over to RISD all the time to hang out. And basically, I started sitting in with his band. I was playing cello, trying to figure out how the hell to mic it with piezo pickups and stuff. And I was just starting to get into that. And that was in the early 2000s. Actually, even earlier, in the late 90s, around 2000s, around then. It was a long, long time ago that we became friends and started playing sort of music together. And we all moved to New York together around 2001. And myself as a cellist, I was like, I'll continue to maybe study a little bit. I never put the cello down. I would just sort of play concertos and little moments of things, but it was always on my own sort of whim. I didn't want any pressure. The pressure of the classical music scene had kind of killed me a little bit. I wasn't suited for it. So Saunder and I were like, well, we need to start a band because we're friends and we know we're tied musically. And so we did. And then we found a drummer. We did sort of an instrumental band for many years. And in this band is where we all sort of grew up and understood sort of where we could go with music. Because we were like, we don't want to follow any other band, any genre. And so we had this sort of weird instrumental band that did sort of rock, but then we would do an impressionist sort of trio for a 2-minute piece and then get back on the drums and bass guitar like we were doing. But it all sort of went together in this filmy sort of atmospheric world. And we had the lights and all this stuff. And this was early 2000s, and we got the record label and all this stuff. So we're learning, like in the recording studio, how to layer instruments. And I was learning personally how to layer the cello on top of each other, just in Pro Tools, or like using loop pedals. It's stuff I hadn't done before. And it was being done by other musicians and other string players. But for me personally, I was like, oh, I'm having a lot of fun, like doing the basses and now doing the cellos. And I'm going to pick up this violin and like, oh man, I can actually do a little string arrangement here. I've never thought about doing that. I've always thought other people should do that. Why? Because they study it. And they're composition students. And so that's their world. And I'm just going to teeter around in here for a little while and see, oh, wow, this sounds pretty good. It almost sounds a little bit like Brahms. And then I just put it away. And then slowly we're like, wow, we're not bad at this. And after about 6 years or so, or 7 years, we're in about like 2008 area, 2007, 2008. And one of our friends who was always like coming to our shows was like, well, you know, some of your parts are so great in your shows, like it's so filmy. Why don't you score my first movie that I just finished? I have no money. It was like a very artsy film with like nature and long slow motion scenes and all this stuff. And we had no idea what we were doing, but we just knew we wanted to try like one of our orchestral layering approaches. So we did, and making it up as we're going along, like with a mic and Pro Tools and talking to each other and trying to figure out like, oh, should we stay on this drone note or should we change chords? I don't know. Should it be a long melody? I don't know. And like, we're just trying stuff. And then I swear it snowballed from there. And that was about a decade ago.
Wow.
That we basically got started with film scoring. And then still, though, never having an ego, never being too proud. We couldn't believe that it was happening. We still can't. A decade later, that we write film scores and write for TV and all this. But we had to go through years of doubt. We don't know how many composers there are in the world. We don't know what they're saying. Is there a consortium of composers that are like judging everybody? Like, what are those guys doing composing that great movie? They have no business here. I mean, I know that's how I felt. It's like an imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
I had to learn personally, and we spoke about it all the time, because we were like, couldn't believe a new project would come. Let's say we're 2 years into our careers, and we're like, oh my God, we just got another project. It's only this much money, but what are we going to say? No, like the phones might stop ringing next week, you know, like we should just continue. So we're just always very, very positive, energetic. We worked all day, 7 days a week, and had other jobs to supplement our income, as everybody does. I mean, I call it the grind. I mean, we were working on photo shoots, like lifting furniture for photography and driving cube trucks in Brooklyn. It was horrible. And then, getting treated not very well, per se, but, we have degrees, and then like go home and be like, all right, empower yourself to write some really great new music for this little indie film. And so you can prove yourself over the years. And that's what we sort of tried to do. And I don't think we even feel that way yet, where we feel like we've proved ourselves and now you should give us $1 million for this score. Like that never, I don't think that really ever happens until, I guess, you like win an Oscar or something. But basically, I'll shut up because I'm ranting. I know I am. But it's basically the flow of how we've come to be here. It's hard work that we put in, but I really think it's the attitude and not having an ego and being two people without ego problems and being very, very close friends. It's worked for us very well. We were able to just exponentially increase our output. I don't know how many movies we've done now, but it must be like 120 or something like that.
Wow.
In 10 years or 8 years or whatever it is. And it's because of our collaboration that we're able to do it. There's not long pondering doubt in terms of composition, because we have each other to be like, yo, do you think this cue is cool? Yes, I do. Or I think you should add some piano to it, or let me just do it. And like, we started doing that like one at a time, but then we started doing it like 5 cues at a time, and then 10 cues at a time, until it was like, Saunder, you do that film, I'll do this film. And then why don't you look at all of them and then put your 2 cents all over it? And then we started being able to trust each other to do that. And then whenever there's like doubt, like, I don't know what to do, man, I just don't have a good melody for this. Like, let me try, and then, so we've been like that. We still are. We just care about getting the music out the door and pleasing our director And then making sure we're happy with the music too. We have to think it's cool and relevant and beautiful and highbrow or sophisticated or whatever.
Or not.
Saunder, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was great.
Sorry.
I need a recording of that so we can just play it for every interview.
I'll provide you one. How about that? So you kind of brought it up, but it seems like you guys approach songwriting as a team like you would a band and composition, where you're working out a song or a tune together. But like you just described, it graduated from that into you kind of go your own ways, and then once you're done, you let the other person kind of add into it?
Yeah, I mean, the first few years were like we were in the same room, like in a recording studio in Manhattan. So everything sort of got written at the same time with us both in the room. But when we started to proliferate and have more films, it was like, we need another computer. Like, we need another room because now there's not enough time. So starting that process together in the room, we had our language sorted out. We had our way of working sorted out. And so when we started to sort of separate, if you want to call it that, like, but it's not really separating, but just, I mean, like one room next to the other, like it was full of trust and understanding. Do you understand? It wasn't like, oh, I did a great movie. What's your movie like? No, everything is shared, and like every step of the way is shared and approved by both of us.
One of the things that you said, getting the music out the door. And the first thing that came to my mind is this phrase that Seth Godin uses. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he says, we've got to ship our art, right? Don't wait till it's perfect. Get it done. Can you expand on what you meant by just getting the music out the door?
Yes, it could be. You could write a class on it, I think. Like writing a music. I think we learned that lesson from writing for commercials, where you're just like up against other people and you're just trying to make something so special. And what you don't realize, this piece of music for 30 seconds, is that the music, once you think it's perfect, has to be interpreted and digested and loved by all these teams, right? The agency that's hired you for the gig, that team has to all approve the music that you sent and choose it. And then when they're ready, they'll send it to the client for more comments and things to think about. So for us, after not winning, say like 100 commercials, we were like, why are we spending so much time? It's just, we're not going to win. Let's say 100, like, and 75 of those we thought were perfect. Like, this is perfect. If they don't win. So we're like, well, that's ridiculous. Let's just spend tops an hour writing this commercial now that we're getting faster at it anyway, or let's say 2 hours or whatever it is. Let's just get this thing out of the door. Obviously, that sounds like a little bit like, I don't care about it. No, it's not that. It's just make the piece of music you're trying to make, get it good, maybe look at it the next morning to make sure you weren't crazy, and then get it out the door. That was sort of how we sort of do it with the commercials. But with film, we're much more precious.
But at the same time, you can't be precious because you're going to get notes and you're going to get, sometimes you're going to have to rewrite it. And it's not worth it to be so stubborn about your own compositions at that point, I think.
It seems like you have to let go of the outcome, the expectation of the outcome. And you had phrased it earlier as having no ego. Is that kind of where you were going with that?
Yes. I mean, that's a big one. It's a big one where we've been really attached to like something. Like for me personally, this is Danny. There have been a couple of times early on where we had written a cue and was just so proud of it. Like really like, wow, this sounds like, say, Shostakovich for like 12 seconds. Like, I'm so proud of that. And then I want it to be in the film. I really do. Get it in the film. But it's for my ego, because I want people to think that, wow, those guys are so good. They can even write like Shostakovich, but that's just so wrong. That's ego getting in the way. Like what we want people to think about us. It's not thinking about the film, and it's not thinking about what's best for the film and the director and what's happening in the scene. Because then maybe the director came back and was like, yeah, this part is a little too weird, man. Like, can we just tone that down? Like, yeah, we're like, no, it's got to be weird. And then we find ourselves pushing against something to try. And why are we doing that? We're supposed to be collaborating. I mean, we might have a point of view, but basically, when I say we have no egos, to wrap this little statement up, it's just to be like, when the director comes back and is like, look, I'm not feeling this cue, or can we make it we've got to be like, absolutely, we'll have it for you tomorrow, And we've always been like that. We're like servants.
Sure. And what did the two of you find as you were able to let go of your ego more and more? What was the result?
I think that we were able to make much more creative and out there music because you're less confined. You just know that, okay, I might have to change this. And then you do things a little bit more viscerally.
And did that lead to ultimately winning more commercials and getting more gigs?
No.
We veered away from commercials in the last few years. We veered away unless there's a company that's out to like find us, not a but like an agency that's like, we want Saunder and Danny for this commercial hired exclusively. Then generally we shy away from commercials.
Yeah,
they're just too much of a nightmare.
We're not good at them either. I mean, we don't know why, but we do these. We would do these like amazing, beautiful, real string arrangements, real pianos, real whatevers, and then we'd ship it off all proud, and then of course we'd never hear back. But then we'd find out that the spot that won was like a terrible MIDI mock-up of a bad orchestra.
Yeah. That was early. I remember that was a Cadillac commercial where they wanted solo cello. There was also an Audi commercial that wanted solo cello. And we were like, yes, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're a cellist. Great. We will send them 10 versions. And then sure enough, 6 months later, saw that same commercial. We'd totally forgotten about it. We knew we didn't win. And then it was a MIDI cello.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe it.
Why do you think that happens? Because I've experienced that too.
Politics.
Well, I think you have to understand that. I think that people that are working at ad agencies or the company that's hiring the ad agency, they're not listening for that kind of stuff. I mean, some of them do. Some of them hear the authenticity, but what they're reacting to is just their knee-jerk emotional response to the music. So there was something in our compositions that was not working emotionally for them, and so it's like.
But we'll never get that feedback, will we, Saunder? You never get like, you guys shouldn't have gone to chord 4 at 22 seconds. That's why you didn't win. Oh yeah, you'll never get that response.
Yeah. We're just not good at it. We're good at the weird ones, but we're not good at like general commercial music.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated here, the idea of letting go of the ego. As a composer myself, I face the imposter syndrome every day and I want everything to be perfect. And letting go of the things that I've done because it's me is one of the most challenging parts of being a creative. So I'm super impressed you guys can do that.
Well, I want to just throw in, I mean, I wouldn't say that we're like pros at doing it. I don't think you can be a pro. And I think it's like, we say, we can't have an ego, but that's granted that there always is as a musician, you're going to have an ego somewhere in there. So we just try and keep it at a, like a relatively manageable level, I think
but you have to be able to summon it. Right? It's like, I'm writing emails and then I'm doing this and I need to do this cue. And you have to like summon that person, that writer inside you. Yeah. And I think that goes into like all art, right? Of course, you got to sort of summon and get in the mood, and you start getting good at it as you get older because you start to know yourself better, right? You start to know what that is.
I don't think it gets easier necessarily. You just learn to manage it better.
That's what I mean.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to, especially a younger composer who's struggling to get to that point?
As far as in terms of that kind of inner critic and the ego and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and letting it go.
I mean, I think that everybody has a different solution to it. This is Saunder. My particular solution to it. So I when we started doing this work, and a few years after, I realized I'm a guitar player originally, and I was like, God, the guitar is completely useless for composing for this stuff. I mean, there's like 1 out of 10 films that actually have some guitar in it or something. And so I was like, I need to learn the piano. So I started taking piano lessons, and then I realized that as I was taking piano lessons, I was practicing every day. Every morning I'd come in, and that would be the first thing I did. And I realized that during that practice session, first thing in the morning, I would kind of watch my mind, and I'd go through these like moments of elation. Like I was learning a Beethoven piece. I was so excited that I could do this. Like, my hands posted, but then playing different things. That's incredible. I never thought I could do it. But then like 5 minutes later, I'd be like, God, I suck. Wow. So bad. How am I even like calling myself a composer? I can't even play the piano. So I'd go through these like insane mood swings within this period of an hour. And I became very mindful of what I was thinking and how I was, reacting to myself. And So now it's become, I still do it every morning. It's the first thing I do when I get to the studio. And it's almost like I overcome this fear every single day in that space of time, in that little period of time. And then when I sit down to get to work, I'm already, I've already done something. Like I've already beaten the critic down. And I'm like, okay, I might suck, but I'm going to do this. And then I just can dive in. But it's that process, that you have to find, I think it's Gerhard Richter, who's a visual artist, but I think he talks about the process, and the process is more important than the outcome. And where you find your muse and where you find, it's not going to find you necessarily. Some people work like that, but you have to kind of put yourself in the right place. So if I go into studio and I play the piano for an hour and then I sit down at my computer, nothing might come to me, but more likely that something will come to me. And if I'm sitting there, I'll be able to do something with it. You know what I mean?
Sure. You've created a spot where that can happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
I'm Ben Byram Wigfield. I work as a music researcher and publisher. So I go and dig up usually long forgotten manuscripts of pieces of music and produce new scores for performers to use. I was following the developments of Dorico at the original blog postings before the software was released, and what I saw there was very interesting, although I didn't really jump onto it immediately, but it became clear as I saw the fast flurry of updates that this was doing some pretty amazing things. So I think I bought Dorico and I had it sitting about and I played with it a bit, but I didn't really take the step into it, I think, until version 2 came out. Actually, it's really hard to remember which version because there have been so many updates. I think in the last 12 months there have been about 7 updates to the software, and so each time that happens you just think wow, oh my god, there's something new. So I think it was when I was just able to try laying out a score and I just thought, right, I've done that, and that's taken me much less time than I was used to achieve a satisfactory result. Dorico knows about music notation. When you put a fermata onto a score, it's not just here's a graphical object that you're just sticking on top of a note. Dorico knows it's a fermata, it knows what it does, and it knows that all the other staves should have fermata as well. So when you add one, it does all the rest, that kind of thing. Also, the flows and the separation of players, flows, layouts, and this structured approach, I think, is just extraordinary. It's the way that it helps you. We often talk about technology bringing help to people's lives, but most of the time it simply replaces what we were doing before. So, instead of sitting in front of a piece of paper, now people just sit in front of a screen and essentially they're doing the same things. Very rarely does something come along where you think, wow, this is actually changing how we're doing things or just making things faster and better. And I think just the amount of stuff that Dorico does for you, that's the game changer, really. So, I recommend Dorico pretty much to anyone who care to listen to me. As I say, I've used Finale for 25 years, and that's a very mature product, but I can't see myself doing much more work in that now that Dorico is here.
The kind folks at Dorico have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorico. So go and do that. I have been using the program and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorico.com/TPC. Are you familiar with the phrase killing your darlings?
No.
So I can't remember exactly who said it, but it was an author. And the idea, and you guys have described it already, is that you work really hard at this idea, this creative idea, and you think it's just perfect. But when you look at the bigger picture, right? Let's say you have this cue that you think is brilliant because you did whatever. It sounds like Shostakovich. But in the whole film, it just doesn't work. And you have to be willing to kill that darling.
Right.
You have to remove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you guys deal with that? I think it's all related to what we're talking about, the ego and all that. But how do you kill your darlings?
I let Danny kill my darlings for me.
I think that might be a thing, right? Because you're doing this together.
Well, no, it is. It's a joke, but it's real. It's for real. I mean, sometimes, like I do find myself sometimes like, and there's another thing about that getting it out the door thing. It doesn't mean we rush it, but it's like, I'll get really excited about something I'm writing and I could spend all day on one cue or like 2 days even. And I find myself like, I keep listening back to it and tweaking and listening back and tweaking and listening back and tweaking. And then there's a moment where usually I'm like, oh God, I got to be careful with this because I'm just going to spend all this time on it. And it's not, I'm going to send it and it's not going to be right. And I have to rewrite it. I think you just have to remind yourself of that. And you have to find the sweet spot where that piece of music is going to convey what you're trying to convey without you treating it like like you're polishing a diamond.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, or you just send it to your partner and have them tear it apart and send it back to you or rewrite it. And you're like, this brings me to another point. We can go back and talk about this, but I just want to say it while it's on the tip of my brain. All this music that you make or that we make, and this is something we've just been trying to get better at, but if you write a cue that you love and it doesn't go in the film or something, you always have your library to put it into. And then there's all sorts of stuff we're kind of, trying to figure out now to, like use that library, whether it's like maybe releasing, albums of unused music or licensing to other things. If you have that stuff well organized, it's pretty powerful.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes we end up, using a cue and it can become like 5 years later. It can be the backbone for a project. It really can. Mm-hmm. But also, look, once you've created something that you like and it didn't go in the movie, it doesn't go in a trash can and it's dead. You did something for, let's say it's for yourself even. You managed to create a work of art. It's a piece. Okay, it didn't get in the movie. Okay, fine. But it's there. You finished it. It's beautiful. There it is. Good for you.
Sure.
It doesn't go with what you said at the beginning with like, how do we make money with music? But at least it's, it's along the right track to have, finished a piece of music, which is beautiful.
I think, though, it is related to how we make money writing music. At the same time that you said you got to get the music out the door, you said you have to please the director. And sometimes pleasing the director means you kill that darling and you save it for something else. And so that is related because you're not going to get a paycheck or get another project if you're not pleasing the director.
Right. True. That's absolutely true. So that's why this whole idea of the ego is, it's like, you got to balance. You've got to be a person that's able to balance those things. I want to please the director. I want to please my partner. I want to please myself. I need to be able to change this music at any point. And we need to hear those words sometimes like, great cue, guys. I absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes they don't say that. They just like they just give us comments, for revisions on the other stuff. And we don't even know if they really like the other cues. And we're like, are you feeling the other cues? And they're like, yeah, we absolutely love them. We're like, okay, good. And then we're like super happy and energized. We're like, we're like puppies or something, waiting to hear like some kind of something good. Our egos stroked just for a second.
Yes. I've done a few independent films, and it's fun when you're showing them the work you've done and to watch their faces. And right away if you've got it or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, we don't do that. That's good that you can do it. When we're showing them a cue, my head is looking at the screen. I'm not looking at their faces.
Right.
Oh, really? Oh, I want to see how they're going to react.
Maybe we should put a little mirror on the screen so you can see a little both.
Yeah.
That could be terrifying. So you guys have done video games, you've done movies, you've done series television, Netflix, Amazon, and all that. Which of those three is the most enjoyable for you?
I mean, I gotta say that lately I've been really enjoying TV, and I'll tell you why. Because it's so fast, and it's I think that both Danny and I mostly enjoy doing film because just creatively, it's the most satisfying for us. But I think the process with TV is kind of fun because it moves so fast that there's no time to like really nitpick through stuff. And sometimes we get away with doing really weird shit.
Yeah? Tell me about some of that.
I mean, just like, for instance, on American Gods, the schedule was pretty normal for a TV show, but it's like, there was already very little rules, but I mean, we just kind of did whatever we wanted. And the kind of the executive producer who was approving everything really just loved all our stuff. And it was like, if those had been like movies that, each we're going to spend 2 months on or something, I think it would have gone down a little differently and things would have gotten tweaked a little harder and stuff. Also, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I just find it's kind of fun. And you also like, you end up moving things a little faster and everything's a little more visceral and like, I don't know. I'm just enjoying that part of it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, they don't have time to get crazy with comments. That's so good. So
sure.
So it's rarely a rewrite, and it's rarely that we've missed the mark. Especially once you get the first couple of episodes out of the way, and maybe those are a bit more difficult. But then episodes 2 or 3 till 10 or whatever it might be, you've got the palette, what they like, and they're already starting to temp the episodes with your existing music. So you're just sort of reformulating things and trying some things here and there. Well, not for American Gods. That was much more like eclectic and all over the place. But for some of the other shows we worked on, so we know what we're doing. So it's like, then you get this like flow going and it's well paid and moving quickly, not too many revisions. And it's just like kind of an easier workflow. But like I was going to say, I've been saying this and I'm not sure if I still stand by it or not, but like, I just don't know if 10 episodes of season 1 of something like the guys from Stranger Things managed to sort of but catch the world with their sound and become sort of famous for it or whatever, with those synths, those analog synths that they use and all that sort of style of composition. But I don't know, and maybe I don't know if like Game of Thrones or let's say much smaller shows, like if you can consider like that a work of art, like, or not work of art, but like something that you listen to all the time or really moved you. Like a film score is just that right amount of music to like listen to the soundtrack and enjoy it and be moved by it and watch it ebb and flow. And it's almost like symphony, like a symphonic thing. Whereas a TV show, like I don't see it like that. I don't love it in that same way.
Sure.
It's all beautiful music and all that and strings and we're doing cool stuff, but I don't see it I see it more patchworky but difficult to see as a symphony, as a work of art that can be admired by people.
Yeah, and if you look at it, like some of these films are about the same amount of music as an episode of a TV show, but it comes from the time spent on it, and it comes from that collaboration and that back and forth. You really get to the essence of the film, get to a little deeper place with it, even though it can be kind of painful sometimes. But that usually produces the most kind of satisfying art for us.
Sure, that makes sense to me. I did interview Andrew Lockington, who's the composer who did the Frontier Netflix series. Mm-hmm. He said that he enjoyed doing the serialized shows because you're doing a whole season at once, and which allowed him to do some more things with the thematic development over the course of the season, because he was thinking about the whole season at one time rather than simply episode 1, episode 2, episode 3.
Yeah. Sometimes it does work like that. And actually, I think we just did this series called Nosferatu, which we did a lot of that kind of, but it's more like it kind of progresses as because you're getting fed these episodes and sometimes you don't know what's going to happen in the next one.
Sure.
But I remember when we first started doing Ozark, it was a little confusing because we'd kind of like write a theme for we didn't read scripts or anything before. I don't think they had all the scripts written even as they were filming. So we'd get an episode and let's say we wrote a theme for a guy or whatever, not a theme, but like, okay, here's so-and-so's like textural theme or whatever. And then the next episode he dies and you're like, fuck, okay, well, what are we going to do with that theme? Okay, we'll just pass it on to somebody else. It can kind of go both ways, I think.
Yeah.
But it is fun when it works.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's come back to the letting go of the ego kind of thing. It seems like this is the heart of how you're able to collaborate, get yourselves out of the way so you can make music that is helping tell a story. And I just didn't know if there's any last thing you wanted to add onto that.
I always say to young composers to focus in on your instrument, no matter what instrument it is, and never stop getting better and experimenting with that instrument. If you grew up studying it, or whether you did or you didn't, or your favorite instrument, what can you do to try to really exploit that instrument? And the same can be said for what's your favorite style of music? If it's speaking to you so deeply for so many years, like, have you really managed to get into it and study it and know it? Because I really think that once you have some kind of base to work from, you can always come back to it and utilize things from it. It's like having a little degree, because otherwise you can be like, well, I'm going to make music. I want to sound like Hans Zimmer. No, I want to sound like John Williams. No, I want to sound like, Danny and Saunder. Like, well, try that stuff. Sure. And maybe you'll make it sound just like us or them or whatever. But what's that really doing? You're just sort of learning the way of doing it. But if you want the jobs, you want to get in a room and you manage to get in the room with the director and you're like, I can make music like anybody. That's not going to win you the job. You need to be like, I love this and I love that. And you might not even end up using that style of music, but the passion and your understanding, like it'll come across if you know what you're doing. Do you see what I mean? It's sort of, I'm scared that composers are coming out of college and like writing in the style of all these composers. And it's so easy to get our hands on their material with YouTube and SoundCloud and all this stuff and just trying to copy styles. And that's fine. And it's really important that you can do that. But more important is your unique voice. What is your thing? Like, and maybe you don't know yet, but start to search for that, because that's when your name will be attached to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Something that gets lost, I think, a lot in composition for media, for film and TV is because we are kind of like behind the scenes kind of thing. It's easy to like fall into this kind of like copying stuff and temp music. And I don't know, I think there should be more emphasis on developing personal creative style.
I'm in agreement. Well, I didn't expect the conversation to focus on ego, but I think it's absolutely brilliant, very useful, and I learned a lot. So thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Sorry for the rants.
This episode of The Portfolio Composer has been supported by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Whether you're a composer or arranger, a teacher or student, working in music engraving and publishing, or working in producing music for media such as film, TV, and games, Dorico is the tool for you. Dorico comes in two versions: Dorico Pro for professionals and Dorico Elements, providing the perfect introduction to the world of scoring. Whichever version you choose, you'll be using software packed full of smart features that produces beautiful results completely automatically, allowing you to get music on the stand more quickly than with any other software. You can bring music into Dorico from your existing software using Music XML or MIDI, and you can try Dorico out completely free of charge for 30 days by downloading a trial version from dorico.com/TPC. Try it today.